Welcome. Scott here. I will be covering on the upcoming Intersecting Wills event, our memories featuring Irvine from Final Fantasy VIII. Other than Irvine, the synergy units for the event are Laguna from Final Fantasy VIII, Sazh from Final Fantasy XIII and Kimahri from Final Fantasy X. Irvine's LD and rework will be making their debut. Irvine and Sazh will get their C90 awakenings. We will be fighting two Iguions, which has 15 million HP each. The boss has no major resistances. The turn requirement for the fight is 60 and the HP requirements is 8000. Before I continue further, here is a small disclaimer clause for the video. The guide is written based on the time that the event was released for the Japanese version. Please do note that it is possible that the boss fight mechanics might differ when the actual event is released in global. Firstly, let's go through the LUFENIA plus Orb Conditions. The orb will be activated at the start of the fight at the counter of 10. Every action taken by your party members will downtick the orb by 2. To uptick the orb, you need to do either one of the following. 1. Inflict a debuff that allows for HP damage up. Examples are Karaseme, Lilyset and Dark Knight Cecil. 2. Player deals ranged brave damage. The orb will be cancelled when the counter reaches 35. The LUFENIA countdown ability is a non-fatal one. Reunite will cause the Iguion cleanses all debuffs and gains strong resistance to all elements and weapon types. All HP damage dealt will be reduced by 100% for 2 turns. Generally, you can easily uptick the orb with ranged units. Examples are Laguna, Irvine, Cypher, Tidus, Noctis, Kain, and Trey. Tidus, Cypher, and Noctis can solo the fight. Kain, Laguna, Noctis, and Trey can do off-turn damage with their traps or follow-up mechanics. You can also freeze the orb by using a HP damage up call while doing AoE brave damage on the bosses. Now let's proceed with some party setup recommendations. Recommended calls abilities. To ensure that you are able to constantly break them, it is important to inflict defense down debuffs. Example of calls abilities that inflict defense down calls are Ferris, Tidus, Jack, and Vanille. To speed up the fight, using HP damage up debuff calls like Karaseme, Gabrin, Lilyset, Fran, Maria, and Ignis are useful. Although a bit trickier to use, Aura-type HP damage up calls like Sid and Kimahri are also viable. Most recently C90 units have Aura-type HP damage up effect. You can use Dissidia DB Call Finder to find out more. As mentioned previously, in order to uptick the orb, you need to deal ranged damage. Here are some additional examples of LDCA that you can consider. They are Dark Knight Cecil, Fang, Cloud, and Irvine. Next, I will be covering units that will be useful to handle the fight mechanics. Like other LUFENIA Plus events, it is always recommended to bring supports for their aura and buffs. They are Garnet, Leela, Eiko, Ramza, Purim, Setzer, Agrias, Katsa, Queen, Ishtala, Bartz, Rem, Lyud, and Sarah. Garnet or Ramza BT plus support will help to trivialize the fight that you could finish the fight before you worry about the boss mechanics. Leela will make the boss attacks a non-issue since the boss don't have any guaranteed hit attacks or than the countdown ability. If you don't want to play to the orb, you can bring Eiko for the fight. Unless you are doing full evasion strategy involving Leela, damage mitigation will make fight easier to ensure your party is safe from any stray HP attacks. Options include Snow, Core, Gladiolus, Warrior of Light, Beatrix, Orin, Zack, Guy, Bash, and Prompto. Once you set up a HP damage up call, you can actually go with the standard launch and delay strategy to finish off the fight. Units are Quistis, Selphie, Ramza, Fang, Sid Reigns and Kais. If you are playing the hit and counter game, ranged traps debuffs can be a useful utility to be deployed here. They are Trey, Maria, Firion, and Laguna. Likewise, you probably be facing a 50% probability of petrification if you let the boss uses its recast. You can considering bring debuff cleansing units for the fight. They are Pain, Mog, Sidor, Yuffie and Yuna. Overall, this isn't a very tough fight. In fact, a lot of JP players are doing solos or duos for the fight. On the screen, you will see a timeline showing the HP thresholds triggers that you need to watch out for. The boss gains LUFENIA aura at the following thresholds: start of the fight and 79%. At the 49% HP threshold, the boss will gain 500k HP shields. You need to break the shield to do damage to the boss. Unlike most Iguion fights, the Iguions in this fight don't do resonance where they will buff themselves. If you are playing the hit and counter game, do watch out for the 50% probability of petrification from its recast ability, Magma Breath. Do note that every action you take will downtick the orb by 2 unless you do ranged damage. You can freeze the orb with HP damage up calls, and ranged attacks will make the orb a non-issue. Overall, this is another easy fight where you probably won't have any difficulty in clearing it as long as you have the right units. Now let's proceed with the boss mechanics proper. Like the previous LUFENIA Plus fights, the boss will gain big stats boosts, brave damage, and brave gain reduction auras when you deplete their HP to a certain threshold. The thresholds trigger for this fight is at the start of the fight and 79% HP thresholds. At the start of the fight, it will boost all its defenses by 200%. At 79% HP threshold, it will further boost its defense to 300%. The maximum brave damage reduction auras is 70%. The maximum brave gain reduction auras are 70%. To handle the defense stats boost, you can inflict defense down calls. To handle the brave gain and brave damage reduction auras, you can use brave damage up debuffs like Jack, Sephiroth, or deploy a support with brave damage up like Lena. Rem is an example of a few supports that provide brave gain up. Even Sazh says, the recent fights are getting a bit too easy to handle. Now let's look into other key triggers for the fight. At the 49% HP threshold, the boss will activate a 500k shield. You need to break the shield to do brave damage to the boss. With the recent C90 and BT units, you probably won't have any difficulty in shredding up those shields. The LUFENIA orb will be cancelled for good once the counter reaches 35. When the condition is met, the boss will also be inflicted with an aura that allows you to deal 30% more HP damage to the boss. I have come to the last slide of the guide. The boss countdown ability Magma Breath is an AoE fire elemental brave attack. It has a 50% chance of causing 2-turn petrification. Upon a unit is petrified, they won't be able to act and they will turn into stone for 2 turns. You can remove the petrification by using a debuff cleansing call. Otherwise, you can prevent it by deploying a debuff evasion unit. I have listed down the options on the screen for your quick reference. If you didn't bring a ranged oriented party and act too many turns, there is a possibility you will see the LUFENIA countdown ability trigger. Upon triggering, the boss cleanses all debuffs and use Reunite, where it will gain 100% HP damage resistance for 2 turns. It will also gain a strong resistance to all elements and weapon types. It is best to avoid triggering it at all costs. The effect can also be cancelled if you trigger the orb cancellation trigger by forcing the orb counter to reach 35. Overall, this fight isn't a tough one. Bring a ranged oriented party with delay, launch and follow-up attacks, you will be probably finishing the fight easily without breaking a sweat. With this, we have come to the end of the boss guide. Thank you for watching the video. If you like the video, please do give the video a like. Please do subscribe to my channel for future similar content. Bye.